I am California of the past.
I am California of the past.
I
I am California of the past.
On August 10, 1925, in Mercy Hospital in Merced, California, my parents, W.S. Newhall and Edith Newhall, welcomed a baby girl whom they named Clara Leona Newhall. That's me. I think they were happy to have a girl because my elder sister had died as an infant, and I had two older brothers. The only disappointment was the fact that my father wanted a girl with dimples. So that was a disappointment, I suppose. At the time of my birth, we were living in Atwater, California. But it wasn't too long after that my father decided to sell his general contracting business and go into farming. So that's where I lived most of my early life. He bought a raw patch of land, a whole section of land, 620 acres, I believe, and he built our home, our two-story home, a garage, a huge shop for all the farm equipment, and several outbuildings for the animals. My earliest memory of that home was for my third birthday in 1928, and my favorite present, I can still remember, was a child-sized broom with a bright green handle. And I must have caused quite a dust storm by sweeping up the shop floor, which was just dirt. So anyway, it was a favorite toy. Other early memories are of roaming the fields and the creek beds with my brother Franklin. We would see jackrabbits and squirrels and snakes and many kind of birds. We never harmed any of them, but we just kind of were in awe of this whole nature being at our feet, so to speak. There was an abundance of wildflowers too. I wish those still existed today. We would see something we called vanilla flowers. I have no idea what their name was, but to us they smelled like vanilla. They were small, white, close to the ground flowers. There were also bluebells and rhodiolas and just things that you can't find anymore. They've either been trampled or bulldozed or just constructed over somewhere or other. I'm sorry that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren can't see those. We had walnut trees out quite a ways from the house, and Franklin and I would go pick up the walnuts and take the husks off of them while they were still green, and this husk material had some acid in it, which would turn our hands black. It didn't just turn black, it stained them black. That was not something my mother appreciated. So we had no close neighbors, so we had very few visitors. My playmates were cats and dogs and various other animals. We had pet chickens usually too, and just things that were alive and you could have fun with. But my favorite animal was my horse named Buck, and he had a little rope around his neck, and I was tall enough I could catch that rope, lead him over the fence, crawl up on the fence, and get on Buck's back so I could ride bareback. That was an absolute, my favorite pastime. On the other hand, riding him, one day he had flies around his face, so my brothers came up with a spray gun that you pumped, and Buck was quite put off by that. So he reared, and I tumbled off over his tail, and I still have a scar on my forehead where I landed on a rock. Farm accidents are pretty common for children and adults too, actually, but that was probably the scariest accident I had. Scariest for my mother too, that all the blood around. So There was no kindergarten then, so I was 6 when I started to school, and it was a small 2-room school called a Rundle, and there were no buses then either, so my brothers and I traveled to school in a horse and buggy with my brother William on the reins of the horse. It was about 6 miles to school. It wasn't a bad journey except when it was cold and frosty, or when it was pouring rain, or when it was really, really hot. Then it was not fun, but we managed very well. There was no junior high then either, but when I was ready for the 8th grade, my father and the rest of the school board members decided that it would be a good thing to consolidate Winton Elementary with Arundel. So I actually graduated from Winton Grammar School. It was there that I was rewarded the American Legion medal. So from there I went to Merced Union High School and then a scholarship to Fresno State, and eventually got married and raised a couple of kids. My father bought that section of land. He developed it with in a very productive land. There were fruit orchards, there were vegetable gardens, and lots of animals that we raised. And along after World War II started, the government decided that they wanted that land for what became Castle Air Force Base. So we had to vacate that land and moved over closer to Merced, actually. One sad thing about that period of time was that many of my classmates were Japanese American, and they had to be all shipped off to internment camps. I don't know what happened to these people, but it was a sad history of the United States at that time. One other thing you wouldn't find too much today was that my father would rent out the stubble fields after the grain was harvested to Basque sheep herders, and this was, large flocks of sheep that would come in. And my brother and I, Franklin and I, would sometimes venture out to the tents where the shepherds lived. And if we were real lucky and hit it on the right day, we would even get a piece of fresh off the coals, genuine Basque sourdough bread. And oh boy, did we enjoy that. So I can still almost taste it now. Maybe that's why I love sourdough bread so much. So I'd kind of like to think of those Basques so far away from home as being lonely for their families, and I hope that Frank and I gave them some real happy memories of their own too. So thank you for this opportunity to participate in this project. I hope somebody will enjoy it. I have enjoyed having these memories and sharing them with you. So it was surely a different time and a different way of life, so thank you again.